Someone can't forgive themselves for how they treated you. God says, "My child, come closer and listen slowly." This message is not rushed. It is not dramatic. It is meant to settle gently into the places you have been carrying quietly for a long time. You have wondered why certain memories return without warning. Why their energy feels present even when there is distance. Why some nights your heart feels heavy for no clear reason. My child, this is not weakness. This is awareness. Someone has been replaying their actions toward you again and again, and no matter how much they try to distract themselves, the truth keeps finding them. They remember the moments they dismissed your feelings. The times they spoke without care. The days they chose convenience over commitment. At the time, they convinced themselves it did not matter. They told themselves you would always understand. Always forgive. Always stay. But now, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, they feel the weight of what they did. Not because they were punished. Not because they were exposed. But because you stopped explaining yourself. You stopped chasing clarity. You stopped shrinking to keep the connection alive. My child, your silence became louder than any argument ever was. When you pulled back with dignity, something shifted inside them. They began to see your value not in your presence, but in your absence. They notice how no one else offers patience the way you did. How no one listens the way you listened. How no one holds space the way you held space. And this realization does not bring comfort. It brings regret that sits deep in the chest and refuses to leave. They try to justify their behavior. They tell themselves they were stressed, confused, afraid. But even these excuses feel hollow now. Because deep down, they know you did not deserve what you received. You did not deserve mixed signals. You did not deserve emotional distance disguised as independence. You did not deserve love given in fragments. And the hardest part for them is accepting that you still remained kind even when you were hurting. My child, there is a specific moment they replay often. A conversation where they could have chosen honesty but didn't. A message they never sent. An apology they delayed too long. In that moment, they believed time would cover the damage. But time did not erase it. Time revealed it. And now they sit with the awareness that you saw the truth long before they were ready to admit it. You may feel them thinking of you unexpectedly. A sudden heaviness. A wave of emotion that does not feel like your own. This is not imagination. This is connection lingering where accountability has not yet been faced. They feel shame not because you demanded answers, but because you stopped needing them. You chose peace over proving your worth. And that choice forced them to confront their own behavior without distraction. God says, "My child, understand this clearly. Their regret is not your responsibility to heal. Their guilt is not yours to carry. You were honest. You were present. You were real. What they are experiencing now is the natural result of seeing truth without the comfort of denial. You are not meant to go back and rescue them from this awareness. You are meant to continue walking forward with clarity. There were nights you questioned yourself. You wondered if you were too much, too emotional, too sensitive, too available. But my child, love is not a flaw. Vulnerability is not weakness. And patience is not something to be ashamed of. What hurt you was not your heart. What hurt you was someone who did not know how to honor it. They missed the version of you that believed in potential. The version of you that waited. The version of you that explained your feelings with softness instead of defensiveness. And the painful truth they are now facing is that this version of you does not exist anymore in the same way. Growth has changed you. Awareness has strengthened you. And boundaries have protected you. My child, do not confuse their regret with readiness. Someone can feel deep remorse and still not be capable of showing up differently. This is why you are being asked to stay grounded. Stay observant. Stay calm. You do not need to rush into closure or reconciliation. What is meant to return will come with accountability, not just emotion. What is not aligned will quietly fade as you continue choosing yourself. God says, my child, your heart was never invisible. It was simply seen too late by someone who was not ready to protect it. Release the need to be understood by them. You are already understood by me. You are already seen. You are already valued. Let their regret be their teacher. Let your peace be your reward, God says, my child. Stay with me a little longer. What is unfolding now is deeper than regret. It is awareness arriving too late. The kind that comes only after someone realizes they cannot undo what they ignored. They are not just thinking about what they did. They are feeling who they were when they did it. And that is what unsettles them most. They see themselves clearly now, without excuses, without noise, without someone softening the truth for them. You were the mirror they avoided. And now that you are no longer standing in front of them, the reflection has followed them everywhere. My child, there were moments when you felt your spirit shrink just to keep the connection alive. You sensed when something was off, but you chose patience. You chose understanding. You chose to believe their confusion was temporary. And they took comfort in that. Not because they were cruel, but because they were unprepared to be responsible for the impact of their actions. Now, in your absence, they feel the full weight of what patience really cost you. They remember how you tried to communicate calmly. How you asked questions without accusation. How you waited for reassurance that never came. At the time, they thought silence would pass. They thought distance would not damage anything real. But now they understand something painful. Love does not disappear suddenly. It erodes quietly when it is not protected. And they were careless with something that trusted them. God says, my child, there is a specific guilt that visits them often. It is not about the arguments. It is about the moments they could have shown up and chose not to. The days they sensed you pulling away and did nothing. The times they noticed your tone change and stayed comfortable. They feel this now because you are no longer available to absorb the impact. Your energy has withdrawn. Your heart has closed certain doors. And that is when regret becomes loud. You may wonder why this awareness did not come sooner. Why they needed to lose access to you to understand your value. My child, some people only learn through absence because presence made them complacent. They mistook your loyalty for permanence. They believed your kindness would outlast their neglect. And now they are learning that love is not guaranteed. It is maintained. They replay memories where you laughed easily, where you shared openly, where you gave without keeping score. And they compare it to now. The distance, the silence, the version of you that no longer overextends. This comparison is what they struggle to forgive themselves for. Because they see that nothing external caused the loss. It was created slowly by choices they dismissed as harmless. God says, my child, do not misinterpret their thoughts as a sign you must return. Awareness does not automatically equal transformation. Regret does not always produce responsibility. Some people feel deeply and still repeat the same patterns when comfort returns. This is why you are being guided to stay centered. To observe without reopening wounds. To trust that clarity will protect you better than hope ever did. You have already done the hardest part. You stopped betraying yourself. You stopped explaining pain to someone committed to misunderstanding it. You chose quiet strength over emotional exhaustion. And that choice shifted the balance. They now feel what you once carried alone. This is not punishment. This is balance being restored. My child, there is no rush in this season. No urgency to fix, clarify, or reconnect. What is meant to be rebuilt will come with consistent action, not sudden emotion. What is not aligned will continue revealing itself through silence. Trust how calm your body feels now compared to before. Trust the peace that arrived when you stopped waiting. They may want forgiveness. They may even want another chance. But understand this clearly. Forgiveness does not mean access. Compassion does not require proximity. You are allowed to release resentment without reopening doors that harmed you. You are allowed to wish them growth without participating in their lessons. God says, my child, you were never asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person for what you deserved. Your heart was not difficult. It was deep. And depth intimidates those who have not explored themselves. The regret they feel now is evidence that your love mattered. But you do not need their realization to validate your worth. Continue walking forward with softness and boundaries. Let time reveal who has learned and who has only felt. You are protected in this season. You are guided. And you are no longer available for half-love, delayed apologies, or awareness that arrives only after loss. Stay present. Stay grounded. What aligns with you will meet you with clarity, not confusion, God says, my child. Remain still with this truth a little longer. There is a reason this message keeps unfolding instead of ending quickly. Some realizations do not arrive all at once. They come in layers, just like healing did for you. The person who hurt you is now facing layers of understanding they once avoided. And each layer feels heavier than the last because it carries the weight of choice. They are beginning to recognize patterns. Not just in how they treated you, but in how they have treated love itself. They see how they pull away when things become real. How they delay accountability hoping time will soften consequences. How they expect forgiveness without fully acknowledging impact. And my child, this realization is uncomfortable because it removes the illusion that circumstances were to blame. It shows them that the distance between you was not fate. It was behavior. You were not difficult to love. You were clear. You were open. You were emotionally available in a way that required maturity in return. They were not ready for that mirror. So instead of rising, they withdrew. Instead of communicating, they minimized. Instead of protecting the connection, they assumed it would survive neglect. And now, when they think of you, there is a quiet ache because they know you would have stayed if they had shown consistency. My child, you might not know this, but there were moments after you pulled away when they almost reached out. Almost apologized. Almost admitted fault. But pride stopped them. Fear stopped them. The fear of being seen fully and still falling short. And every time they chose silence instead, the regret grew deeper. Because silence does not erase truth. It amplifies it. They notice now how rare your energy was. How safe your presence felt. How you never tried to control them, only to understand them. They compare new connections to you, and nothing quite matches. Not because you were perfect, but because you were sincere. And sincerity leaves a mark that casual attention never replaces. This realization follows them into quiet rooms, late nights, and moments when distractions fade. God says, "My child, I need you to hear this gently." Their regret does not mean they are entitled to your time, your energy, or your healing. Awareness can exist without alignment. Someone can finally understand your value and still not be capable of honoring it. This is why you must not romanticize their guilt. Guilt is a beginning, not a transformation. You once waited for them to choose you without hesitation. To speak clearly. To show up fully. And they did not. That chapter taught you discernment. It taught you the difference between potential and behavior. And now, even if they return with words, you are wiser. You listen differently. You feel differently. You are no longer moved by emotion alone. You are guided by peace. My child, there is also something happening within you that matters just as much. You are releasing the need for them to understand everything. You are letting go of the urge to explain your pain one more time. This is growth. This is closure forming quietly inside you, not through conversation, but through self-respect. And as you release, the energetic pull between you weakens. That is why they feel you slipping away more clearly now. They are learning that access to you was a privilege they did not protect. That your forgiveness was not automatic. That your patience was not infinite. And this lesson is uncomfortable because it cannot be undone. They cannot go back and treat you better then. They can only sit with the knowledge now. And that knowledge is teaching them what love actually requires. God says, "My child, do not feel guilty for their discomfort. You did not cause it. You did not orchestrate it. You simply stopped abandoning yourself. And when one person stops carrying the emotional load alone, the imbalance becomes visible. That visibility feels like loss to those who benefited from your silence. There is no urgency for you to decide anything. No pressure to reopen communication. No obligation to provide clarity they failed to seek when it mattered. You are allowed to move at the pace of your nervous system. You are allowed to choose relationships that feel steady instead of confusing. You are allowed to want consistency without apologizing for it. They may reach a point where they forgive themselves. Or they may not. That journey belongs to them. Your journey is about maintaining the clarity you have gained. About trusting how your body responds now. About noticing how calm feels unfamiliar but right. This calm is not emptiness. It is safety. God says, "My child, remember this. Love that is meant for you will not require you to shrink, wait endlessly, or question your worth. It will not arrive late with excuses. It will come present. It will come accountable. It will come aligned. Until then, remain grounded in what you have learned. You were not too much. You were just finally enough for yourself. And that is why everything is changing," God says, "My child." This is where the lesson settles and completes itself. There is no more unraveling after this, only understanding. What they are facing now is the consequence of meeting themselves honestly for the first time. Not the version they showed the world. Not the version they defended. But the version that made choices knowing you were sincere and still chose comfort over care. That realization does not shout. It sits quietly and follows them everywhere. They now understand something they refused to see before. You were not asking for perfection. You were asking for presence. You were not demanding control. You were asking for clarity. You were not trying to change them. You were asking them to show up as they already were. And they failed to do that consistently. This is the part they struggle to forgive themselves for. Because it removes every excuse they once leaned on. My child, they remember the moments when you sensed distance and still stayed gentle. When you softened your words so they would not feel attacked. When you waited for reassurance instead of walking away immediately. They see now how much emotional labor you carried quietly. How much grace you offered without being asked. And the pain of this realization comes from knowing you did not owe them that patience. You gave it because your heart was honest. They also see something else now. They see how they benefited from your understanding without reciprocating it. How they accepted your forgiveness without earning it. How they relied on your loyalty while withholding their own effort. This awareness is uncomfortable because it reveals imbalance. And imbalance is easy to ignore only when one person keeps compensating. When you stopped, the truth stood exposed. God says, "My child, this is why their regret feels heavy. It is not about missing you in a romantic sense alone. It is about losing access to someone who loved them without strategy. Someone who did not play games. Someone who did not withhold affection to gain power. That kind of love is rare. And rarity is often only recognized after loss. You may never hear these realizations spoken aloud. They may never articulate them clearly. Some people process regret internally because admitting it externally would require humility they are still learning. But silence does not mean absence of feeling. It means the lesson is happening privately. And that is enough. My child, I want you to understand this final truth deeply. You were not meant to stay and suffer so someone else could learn. You were meant to leave when staying required self-betrayal. Your departure was not abandonment. It was alignment. And alignment always triggers awakening in others, whether they are ready or not. Do not look back wondering if you could have loved differently. You loved honestly. Do not question if you asked for too much. You asked for what was natural to you. Do not minimize your pain by comparing it to their regret. Pain and regret serve different purposes. Yours taught you boundaries. Theirs is teaching them accountability. God says, "My child, release the need for an ending conversation." Closure does not always come through words. Sometimes it comes through peace returning to your body. Through no longer rehearsing what you would say. Through not checking for signs. Through waking up lighter. That is closure taking form within you. If they ever return with awareness, you will recognize whether it is real. Real change feels calm, not urgent. It feels consistent, not emotional. It respects your boundaries without trying to negotiate them away. Until then, your path continues forward without pause. This chapter ends here. Not with bitterness. Not with longing. But with understanding. You were never unlovable. You were simply ahead of someone who needed loss to learn what presence costs. Walk forward now. Your heart is wiser. Your spirit is steadier. And you are no longer available for love that arrives late and leaves you confused. This is the completion.